I'm Charles Gus. I'm Assistant Director of Community Development at Martha's Table and a lifelong DC native. I was raised on the south side of Washington, D.C. I'm currently the Assistant Director of Community Development at Martha's Table. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to support my community. A community that at one point in time I was somewhat like a part of the problem. When I was younger, I had my typical ups and downs. Running with the law, I attracted more to the streets. I had more freedom. And around that time, there was a lot of what we call beefs going on. So I was involved with different beefs that were happening in 2006. But even after high school, I still was in the streets. I didn't really have a plan after high school, and I was just pretty much just hanging out on the street every day. I would work little small jobs here and there just to try to get out the way for a while, but for the most part, I was just outside getting into different things. But in 2004, I ended up having a huge turn in my life. Due to some of the beef that we were involved with, I went to a nightclub one night and we ended up running into a rival neighborhood. Within the club, we got into an altercation in the club, got put out of the club, and as I was driving home, I ended up getting into an accident where I flipped over a median and totaled my car, went totally unconscious. They found me on the passenger seat of the car, and when I woke up, the police, the ambulance, and everything was already there. I looked up and I saw one of the police officers going to the car, and that's when it snapped in my head that I have a gun in there, because I knew I had a gun. I was riding around with a gun on my lap because that's how we used to move back then, because at any moment you may have had to protect yourself. So ended up getting out on bond, and then I had a court date. And the funny thing about that court date that came a couple of months later, I had no clue that I was going to be incarcerated. In fact, I thought I was probably going to get off on probation, considering it was my first charge. I spent, I want to say about 4 months in Upper Marlboro. And that was the turning point in my life. Living in those conditions obviously isn't comfortable. One of the things that I realized during that time is, that wasn't the lifestyle I wanted to live. I immediately started reading more. I started writing about what I wanted to do in my life, and I always knew that I wanted to serve, do service work in some capacity and give back to my community, but I just didn't know exactly how that would look. Those experiences gave me the desire to want to do community work because I felt like I was a product of my environment at one point in time, and I wanted to kind of inspire hope. Through my role at Martha's Table, one of my biggest goals is to be able to, one, create spaces where smaller nonprofit organizations can build capacity for their organizations, because there's a lot of grassroots organizations that are doing phenomenal work in the community, and a lot of the leaders that are running these small grassroots organizations are people from the community who have stories similar to mine, that understand the territory very well, have gone through their trials and tribulations in the community, but want to serve and want to do better and want to help other people do better. So one of the things that I am super excited about what we're doing at Martha's Table, we had it when I was younger. That would have been a phenomenal thing to have, is the Global Passport Program, where we're taking 20 youth from Southeast DC on regional and global trips, taking 20 youth to Atlanta, Georgia. We have a full itinerary of different museums and places that we're going to visit, college campuses. And I just think taking kids out of their natural environment to see more, to be able to fly on a plane for the first time, to get that travel experience, and to understand that there's a lot more than just their immediate neighborhoods, that would have been huge to have in our community when I was coming up. Yeah, it was a full circle moment to acquire the job at Martha's Table, but it was something in me that was telling me that you got to go back to your community. It was like my community was calling me to come and do the work. I wanted to do it. And ironically, I was sitting at my desk one day and I received a text from my mom, and she told me to check my email. So when I checked my email, there was the job description at Martha's Table for a community development manager. And I was like, this is me. Like, this is my job. Like, this job is calling me.